Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of an incredible talk show brought to you by the Indian Football. Today we have with us Mr. Ajit Braich. Mr. Braich is a British national from Canada with his roots lying in India. He has more than 20 years of experience in coaching and holds a Canadian A license, AFC A license, and the UEFA B license. He had his own academy called the Ajit Braich Soccer Academy. He has held important roles such as head coach and technical director at clubs in Canada and England. He has coached at youth level at Coventry City in England for 6 years. He has advised Minerva Punjab FC in their I-League winning season. He has also worked with RFC Football Academy in India and is currently working as technical director of South Burnaby Soccer Club and technical advisor of Van City Pro in their youth to adult transition program. Now I'll hand it over to Ryan to carry on with the interview.
Brilliant. Super delighted to have Mr. Ajit Braich, someone who I've had the privilege of giving interviews along with. And I'm probably one out of the few in Indian football who know him, who I'd like to think I know him very, very well. Ajit sir, absolute delight to have you here. And we will hopefully have your knowledge passed on to the entire Indian football fraternity through this YouTube video. Pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure being on. I think these sort of exciting projects that you're doing, opening the world up with internet. I believe the world is so small. And so well done for your initiative. And let's hopefully we can put a few thoughts in that will improve Indian football. Very, very needed, as we all know. So thank you for having me.
100%. And now this is just for the viewers, a bit of a little suggestion just beforehand. Keep your pen and paper ready because a lot of what Mr. Ajit Braich says is stuff that you can actually implement as you go back to your club. So first off, Ajit sir, just to understand you as a person. So you're a British citizen, you are based in Canada for currently, and you've been there for a long time. You have a British accent, but Ajit Braich is an Indian sounding name. So can you tell the viewers about your heritage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually like being introduced as a British citizen. That was a need to become a British citizen. As people move to Canada, they want the PR Canadian. I'm actually born in India, very proud. And when I introduce myself, I speak a lot of Punjabi, as you know. I love the food. We come back every year. We have a home. So born in India. But the interesting thing is very poor background. My parents in the mid-60s moved to England, and we talk about discrimination now. Well, you should have lived when we lived there. So I was about 6 years old, moved to England, no English, mom and dad, 2 or 3 jobs, typical what we hear about. And as we went through the education, and this is what I like the viewers to understand, sports actually became an avenue for us to mix with people. Me and my brother particularly, we weren't bad at football, not to boast, but once we got into school teams, we started playing, we made friends, and we became part of the gang, or the group as they used to call it then. We don't like the word gangs. And obviously got an education, was managed to play semi-pro, didn't quite make the pro game. But one of the things I had to do in England was I couldn't get a job in the professional game because I wasn't an ex-pro. And it's everywhere, unfortunately. It's who you know sometimes, not what you know. But a couple of opportunities came in Canada where I have my brother lives here. So he said, why don't you try here? And then when I moved here, the other interesting thing, again, for young coaches, I was doing 2 jobs, a management job in a real world, as I call it. And my pleasure was coaching football and doing it voluntarily. Until one day the boss, who's the Whitecaps now, came in and said, can we offer you a full-time job? I didn't even ask him about the salary. I said yes. So I went in, and the rest became history, as you know, my site CV. So football's been very good to me, but you have to put a lot of sort of volunteer hours in to get what you... And then the second piece was constantly learning. I tried to do the Canadian license. I had the British recently, about 7-8 years ago, got the AFC, because these are sort of requirements that you need. But really, so that's sort of the heritage side, all right? As much as people say it's a British name, but very proud to be Indian, and that's why I want to help out. Since 2013, actually, I've been trying to do stuff in India. Thank you.
Brilliant. That's quite a journey you've had, and you've had the experience of living in multiple countries. So that's definitely something interesting. Now, just to understand about your football background, so you come with 20 plus years of coaching experience and your experience of being an educator as a technical director. You can be considered a true veteran in the field. So can you talk us through your coaching journey, how it began, as well as your work in the UK, Canada, as well as India?
Yeah, I'd like to use the word experience, not veteran, because a veteran sometimes is almost retiring, but I think it's a passion. So in England, as you say, I was about 14 and I was being scouted, which I didn't know. My parents didn't know because they said no football education. So I got scouted by Coventry and I had trials and I was told I wasn't good enough. So, but locally, a local club picked me up and we used to sneak out to play football. Dad didn't know, mum knew, but we used to, because they didn't want us playing in case got hurt, like typical now, be a lawyer, doctor, or whatever. So I played semi-pro, plus I had a very good electrical engineering job. But the company allowed me to play until I got to about 28 briefly. The coach said, I got good news, bad news. I said, well, give me the bad news. He says, oh, we're not renewing your contract. I said, oh, no. But he said, would you come on as a player coach, though? Because some of you have seen me coach. I was a bit of a leader on the field in terms of a sweeper. So he said, you got the right qualities. So from 28 to about 33, 34, I started helping as the fourth first team coach at this local club, fourth coach, not second coach, not second or third. And in the meantime, I started doing my FA badges. So they came handy. But the experience of coaching week in and week out was way more beneficial than just getting the licenses. So that continued. And then I got my first head coaching job at the semi-pro about 36, 37. That was hard work. I thought it was a lot more. And if I had to do it again, I should not have taken the job. I was nowhere near ready. And I think that's what's happening in the industry now. I've got the license, but there's nowhere. So I went back to being an assistant coach, third coach. And then a few opportunities came here. So when they came here again, I went and volunteered for the pro club. And again, after about 6 months, they offered me a job. But in the meantime, I was being mentored by, some of you may know him, rest in peace, Dick Bates. So he was one of my mentors, plus Tony Waits, the national coach. But me mentoring these coaches was way more valuable than the certification. So then once I got my full-time job with the 86ers Whitecaps, that was my first journey. But again, I kept thinking, am I ready? So I kept going back to watching people train. And then I felt confident enough in the early 40s, when I was 40 odd. I mean, that's saying something, that I was ready because I understood some of the things that we're going to discuss later. And it was very little to do what to go on the field, because the sessions were only actually hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. But what were the coaches doing at the time? That was fascinating. So yeah, then as you'll see in the TV or for the audience, they got taken over and we got released. But then a couple of local clubs I'd worked for came and said, would you like to be our TD? So I negotiated two jobs in 20 years, 10 at one club, 10 at another. And then again, but trying to watch people. How do we coach children? How do we coach youth to adult transition program, which we're going to talk about? So that's a quick, brief journey. But anything I would take away, I just felt I wasn't ready just because I had a certification or a badge, or it was actually doing the stuff in the trenches. Yeah. Hopefully that sums up sort of the journey on the coaching side.
It definitely does, and some golden words where you speak about certifications not really being the be all and end all. So now we come to the entire reason why we have brought you on this show, and this is where the magic begins. So you have been there and done that all. That's what I believe. And if you had to guide a newbie coach who wants to establish him or herself as a successful coach, specifically in India, then can you tell us in detail how they should go about it, the steps they should take to try and make a successful career in the country as a coach?
I think at the very early age, regardless of age, I think sometimes you have to sit down, and if it's a young age, sit down with your parents. You know, Is this what you
How-
want? And if you've got a partner, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, because if it's a female coach or wherever, I've got a coach now, because the one thing with coaching is it's not just an hour and a half session on the field. So even if you get to that decision, do I want to get into coaching? Have you done any research? What's involved in to be a coach? What are the requirements, whether it's certification, the experience? Can I find a good mentor? What about the financial side? I've got a coach now again because he's only part-time. I said, well, you're not going to make a living. And in India, obviously, there aren't too many jobs at the moment where you can be away from family and make a very good livable salary. I mean, there are some very good. So I mean, I would encourage you to do all the research on these topics, the environment that you want to go into. Is it full-time or is it residential? Is it national or is it skills center? I mean, there's the thing, beauty of India, and I would like, the audience is, we have to understand the culture, the religion, the environment side of people first before we can start coaching. And we did that at Minerva, trying to create profiles for players. So the coach is the same. What about the language you speak? Maybe when I was in Bangalore, I couldn't understand the Tamil boys. So that's something as a coach. Where are you going? All right. So those are considerations I think you start thinking about before you even get to that stage. And then we've got some great coaches in India, and apologize if I don't mention your name, but we've got the Richard Hoods, the Reddys, and the Beanos and Surinder. Talk to them. Find out what took them there. And like I said earlier, I made a huge mistake, I felt, when I took the head coach job on. I wasn't ready. I had the certification, I had the willpower, I had the passion, but I didn't really know what that head coach position was. And now most of it is managing people, right? Content becomes the last thing until you become an ISL coach or an I League or a Div 2. Then you start thinking about, but then it's time consuming. Even at the highest level, coaches usually the gaffer callers. I'm usually, even now in the evening, I'm usually the first one on the field and probably the last to leave, even now. But I'm fortunate because I've been married a long time and I can pick and choose. But those are things I would like. And then lastly, as I said earlier, with those names I mentioned, find somebody that's willing to give you half an hour or 40 minutes, sit down like we did with you, actually. We can talk about that later. We had a couple of interesting projects. One was great and the other one wasn't. We guided you through the sort of jungle to find the light, and without getting caught by the animals, as we call it here. It is a big jungle, all right? So those are things I would consider, not which, because all we get is, well, what license do I need to do? What academy shall I join? Well, that's going to be down to you. Don't be an Ajit Braich. Don't be a Ryan. Be you. All right. So hopefully that answers some way. But again, I'm sure you're going to end it if somebody wants to. And we don't charge, as you know. It's a pleasure mentoring coaches. Not that I want 200 or 300 coaches to mentor, but we'll find somebody for them and even do it ourselves, like we did with Ryan, right? Because I've got a few people that we're helping out.
Absolutely, and today that's the special part of this interview, that we aren't really going too much into the technical side of it, but we are talking about the lesser discussed stuff which the audience will be listening into. Now, similarly, the role of a technical director is a very interesting one, and a role that you currently hold. You're a technical director as well as a technical advisor. So, can you enlighten us on what your role entails, just to give everyone a good idea of what a TD does? It does sound important and fancy, but what your role is, and also any suggestions, any advice you give to coaches who would like to make the step up to the TD position.
You're right. It is daunting what a role of a TD is, and unfortunately, here we have a little saying: it's all the above. So whatever you can think of related to football, I get people coming up to me. Just an example: oh, can you hand this registration form into the administrator? Oh, I have a check because I can't pay online. Where in my job description does it say that? Oh, I don't know how to get onto TeamSnap. But a good TD will spend time, right, and do that. And on the flip side, don't think about a TD that's not be coaching. This is my opinion, guys. I know there's TDs. To me, the reason I can stay passionate and hungry for the game, I probably still do 5-6 sessions a week as a TD. Do I need to? No. I want to. Right. So TD's role is more of an organizational. We did it at Minerva, get the right coaches in place. Again, the technical is the last end. Everybody keeps saying, well, let's create a curriculum, let's get the lesson plan. They're all very important. But to me, I'm hiring 2 coaches, local ones. One, I'm having a battle because I don't think he has the right personality to coach children. So where in my description does it that I need to study people? But that's part of the role. People say, well, what do you want? I give them a criteria, you come and run a session, but more importantly, the 40 minutes he walks around the field to me is way more important because I got to know you. And then, did he like what we do? Because if those don't happen, then why do you want the role? TD can't be, well, I'm sitting in office. And actually, Ranjit paid a really good compliment the first time. He says, you don't have to be the first person in the tea room. I used to go and make tea with the tea lady. Because it was just, you're up in the morning, let's go and introduce yourself. But then you've got to be careful of what I call overworking as well. That's where I was guilty of way back because I didn't know. I wanted to impress everybody. But if you're doing the right things, your success will be through other people, including the coaches, the players, the management, and what the environment, which is a big word in my vocabulary, looks like, feels like. And at the end of the day, if it depends on what level, have we produced 1 or 2 players? Yes. Have we kept players in the game? Yes. Have we got players returning saying, you know what, Ranjit, Ryan, thank you for looking after us? Do we get those phone calls? That to me is a true TD. But you do need the knowledge. Can't just become, because I was a learning facilitator for years, right up to the B license. Again, we say we don't just mark you on, oh, it's ABC. That's where I think certification needs. We need coach mentorship. That's the other thing that the TD I think needs to do more. I've got Marco up on our boy. He was a bit battling me. I said, look, just watch me run a session, take away your little pieces. Now people are saying, oh, I can see the difference. Nothing to do with he's got all his licenses. Actually, he's trying to become a learning facilitator for us too. I'm training him because I don't have time. I'm trying to do less. So those are the roles that we don't discuss about a TD. We say when you go for an interview, they say, you show us your philosophy, your curriculum, and this and that, and we go on and on. But can't deal with people. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, go ahead.
For the Indian football audience, could you just explain the role of a learning facilitator?
Learning facilitators, and I think they're a great word. We don't use the word instructors. All right. We dropped it about 10, 12 years ago. So those are people that you go to certification in your AFC or wherever. So these are all learning facilitators. And think about what the words are, facilitator. I'm not an instructor. I'm there to facilitate the learning part of it. All right. And hopefully show you 1 or 2 tricks, not just say, well, can you do third man running in the attacking third? And your right back wasn't in place. You whisper to him, say, do you think that right back would do that in a game? No, well, don't do it here. That's facilitating. Not saying, oh, you're going to fail because you didn't do it. Try to facilitate what the learning process. Same with the players. And back to my word environment, that's going to come up a lot today. So that's basically what the learning facilitator is. It's an instructor, in other words, but they change the wording. And they've now changed the attitude of us as well, facilitators. We want to facilitate. Yeah.
Yes,
because it's daunting to go when you go to a sort of a license, isn't it? We're all nervous. I was nervous. I've got to prove myself. I got to pass. Let's lose the word pass. I know we want to pass, but that's down to the facilitator, how he creates that environment on day one. Yeah.
And also for the second part of the question, any advice you'd give to coaches who are planning to who aspire to become a technical director in the near future?
Again, back to the earlier question, make sure you do the research on, depending on where you're going as well, what the content of that role is, right? People say, well, I'm a TD, but what do you do? What if somebody says to you, well, we want you to do a curriculum, we want you that might be what the owner wants. Are you capable of producing that? Can you mentor coaches? Some TDs now, what we're doing here is we'd actually, because we want them to stay in coaching, because a lot of technical directors lose their way of coaching because they haven't coached for a while, is we're actually taking a step where I can take one team a year, as long as it doesn't occupy my time, with a good assistant. So I still become the head coach, so I get to know what the daily problems of a team are, or the assistant coach, the physio. This is obviously the higher end, right? The program we're going to talk about later, because we've just designed, which I think is very appropriate for youth to adult transition. That's what I think is missing in India at the moment. And you and I have discussed this, right? So yeah, TD role, don't jump at it. Might be a little bit more money, might be glorified title, as you say, but find out what the content, and more importantly, who you're working for and with. If you don't have a good owner, I mean, I learned one bad one, and I basically said to him, I'm leaving because you don't need a technical director because you're doing it all. And we became friends later.
Definitely. Yeah. So now you've given your advice to coaches, to future technical directors. Now you have also been an advisor to clubs like mine, and you've had your own academy, Ajit Braich Soccer Academy. So and your advice has definitely been very, very helpful to me for sure. So would you mind giving a few important suggestions to coaches who plan to set up their own club or academy in the future?
What a great question. I don't think there's any straight answers, but I think the big one I always come up with is, why are you doing it? All right. When are you doing it? All right. What's the purpose? Those are the little things. Is it, I think it makes good money? Well, no, you know what the response from me for that's going to be. Do you have the background? You know, again, when you and I discussed yours, it took us months and months and months to sit down. There's 101 questions if you want to open your. I mean, if you want to say, well, I got 20 kids, I use a Canadian term. I've got $100 come in a month. I'm making $10,000. It's easy money. Is that your reason you're doing it? I hope you do it because you have the passion for football. That to me was, I'm very supportive. I'm lucky I've got a wife that supports, because when I moved to Canada, my passion overlooked what my children wanted, but it all worked out luckily. My wife said, I'm not going to move because I was settled in England, good job. So I had to figure out why we were doing it. Why did I want my academy? I mean, I don't have an academy. It's just a business name. But when you're thinking, do you have the passion? Then the academy, again, the technical content is a very small piece. Are you capable of dealing with people? Because to me, you should treat every player, every parent as a guest of yours. That's why we thought later on, when I realized that, that's when we came a little bit successful. Early on, we didn't. I thought it was quick money, and it was definitely not the right move. So think about why you're doing it, where and you've been through it. Do you have the right facilities? Do you have the manpower? What's your ratio of players to coaches? Think little things, but they're important. All right. Are you really ready? Do you have enough the equipment? One of the academies I won't mention in India, we struggled to equip. I said, how can we do this when we don't even have 12 decent pumped up balls? And the parents were complaining too at that same one. When I went in, I said, look, I'm only here as a guest coach. Passed it on, and he said, yeah, the colored pennies, the appearance and what you do, the passion will drive your success in football. The passion has to be the reason. It can't be just we're doing a business. All right. I've seen so many boys and girls and females here fail as well, right?
It is quite a challenge having your own entrepreneurship for sure. But yes, I think if you do have the passion and you're starting with the right reason for the right reasons, then you do find your way for sure. And I think this is the right time to now ask you another question that I planned, which is a very important one. Football is a game fueled by passion. Football is a game that's going to be perhaps number one for everyone in their life. But then you also have a family, and that family is also important. So how do you, I mean, and you've actually gone and lived in multiple countries, so you're the perfect person to tell us, how do you balance the football life and the family life?
Well, I don't know whether Babaji was looking after me, because I got so much support from my family, my wife and the boys. They were 13, 15 at the time. But it's such a great question, Ryan, and it can't be treated lightly. I've got a coach now, but another one, he's married. Boys are 6 and 3. His wife's got a very good job, and she approached me about 6 months ago and said, look, buddy, we want him to coach, but he doesn't see the children when they go to bed. He sees them in the morning, they go to school, and that's it. So I spoke to him, and I said, what can we do? And I said, why don't you just go part-time a couple of days, right? So it's a real serious consideration, because it's a very unsociable hours. if you're in a residential academy, we've spoken to some of the guys at Minerva, you're leaving home, right? If you're married, your wife's somewhere else in the country and your parents. And then we had another one where his dad got taken ill and we had to get him back very quick. So these are things that you've got to consider very carefully, right? And if it's just money, so you need to sit down again, what I say back to the coaches I mentioned earlier, give them a call, give me a call, figure out, give me what your picture looks like. Ryan, we did it with you, I think probably 2 years ago. We talked about everything we've done it. What does your picture look like? And then does that able you to move forward to what you really want to do? So it's really that picture of yourself, family, surrounding, revenue, sustainability, all the tech work. Then you sit down and say, you know what, I can do this. Some of the guys that are in the ISL, I know one or two of the Spanish coaches, and they're leaving home for 2 years. Maybe they can do it. I don't know. Right, Terry, I forget his surname. Sorry, at South United, he ended up moving there. I think eventually, didn't he? Because he was from England. So before you make that move, you need to be able to sit down. Yeah, the passion we said it will drive you, but there's a lot more things, nothing to do with football, and it's all family. And then number two, and I'm an example of it again, was your own health. I didn't describe earlier. They don't know why. They think it's hereditary. About 8-9 years ago, I had a heart attack. Quadruple bypass, Luckily, I came through it. The only thing we can put it down, just probably stress. Yeah, there's me saying I'm passionate, I love the game, blah, blah, blah. Babaji's saying, hold on. So that's why I've slowed down a bit and doing more what we're doing now. It's a little bit of helping people more, which I could have done, we should have been doing 20 years ago. So I'm saying, so sit down with somebody, find out what your picture is, an overview, talk to somebody else independent, talk to mom and dad, talk to you, then say, is my picture ready for that journey? And that's a very, very tough decision. Like we won't give too much away. The one that we discussed with you on the one journey that didn't work out for the right reasons. We're very smart. Well, that's why we're here, right? That's audience. That's just something private with Ryan. But he's thankful we spoke. I'm thankful he spoke, and we didn't take that journey, or he didn't take that journey.
No, absolutely. And I'd be happy if you do go into detail, because we will be discussing that as well. Now, but a very interesting thing. Now, Minerva Punjab and the owner, Ranjit Bajaj, they are an inspiration for a lot of the lesser reputed clubs around, because of their knack of being able to produce so many players and win an I-League despite having limited resources. Now, you're probably the best person to tell us what the magic is, because you are advising the team in their I-League trophy winning run in the 2017-18 season. So what do they do that's different and that brings them success?
When you sent me the questions, I laughed at this, and I spoke to my wife, and I said, Ryan, because I do discuss a lot of my stuff with my wife, and so I said, Ryan's got this question. And again, I looked, and the one word that came out to me was passion. He blows me away, young man. All right. He calls me Ajit, sir, but I've been to his house. And then because he has that passion, and then he's got the support of his wife, Hena, super lady. But when you're on site, do they have issues in terms of logistics? Now we're just doing something. Of course they do. But their passion and drive overcomes those, because I won't share it today, because I printed off 10 powerful quotes about mistakes in life, and he's willingly to share what he's done and not done, and some of those things. But then his passion and drive kept going through. But Hena's support's always there. But back to his own picture, he was fortunate because of his Nanaji and everybody. Because I know the story, I'm sure he doesn't mind sharing. But they also had a fantastic academy with the forces, the Navy, the Army. Ranjit, I apologize if I don't have all the facts. But so there, he had a picture and saying, you know what, I have this, I've got to work hard, but I've got an opportunity to parallel a soccer academy, football. He'll fly 4 or 5 hours to make sure he doesn't miss a lecture in the academy on the Army side. I wouldn't like his schedule, but I loved it because we were sort of two peas in a pod, because I love the on the field side, but him and I be having a bite to eat, or I think I remember the last, and there's 5 people have been in already discussing during this. So it's 5 meetings in one. Right? I phone him now because we got a bit of a connection. He'll say, "No, I'm busy till the 10th." And futsal, look, who do you think he would have just picked up the futsal program? So the passion and the drive, and then the other thing that comes is the ability, attempt to, I use that word not because it's not impossible, to maintain standards. He's a stickler, as I was. Do we get very rare, but we still keep pushing it. Right. And then the environment, even when I went, I remember it is some of the coaches wouldn't sit down with the players to eat. You know, he said, "Well, we don't." I said, "Well, I'm going to go and eat with the players." Right. Sometimes he said, "Oh, yeah," but then I said, "Well, try it." But it's standards, the passion, and the environment, the people, even the pro players looked after him very well. We were in nice hotels. We brought on a couple of European world items on, like team walks before breakfast. Teams weren't doing that. The African boys couldn't find somewhere to pray. But we kept pushing the bar. When it came to delivering a speech, well, not a speech, that's a bad word, the inspirational words before a game, I've never met anybody like it. That room in there would die for him, including me. If you needed something professionally and you went to a right reason, like, I think it was like we had almond nuts and stuff in the dressing room. And he said, if that's what the players need, we'll get it. But all within a budget as well. You can't just go out and say, as you said, put the tap on and water's pouring. Eventually that water is going to run out. Right? So his words, the passion, the environment, maintaining standards, support from his good lady, as I call her, Henna, super lady. And it's every time I go, they're making improvement to the facility as well. I was there, as you know, in February, just helped him out because I had a wedding to go. So I popped in for 3 or 4 days. They've picked up again. They've got, so everything's constantly looking, what are we doing next? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? And then obviously the business side is, do we have the numbers? I mean, his social media is very good. You know, sometimes is he very out of the box? I think he is. I think he does a great job. All right. And I think he's made enough noise to make a bit of difference. And that's what I think in life we need to do sometimes. Don't have to be jumping up and down, but make enough noise so we can make a difference. But his passion and the environment and standards, I think, would be the 3 sort of family support. Sorry, that should be up there too.
Yeah, I mean, these are points that club owners, whatever you have mentioned here, these are great points that club owners can learn from. Now, you have fantastic knowledge in football, undoubtedly, and you also have fantastic knowledge of Indian football. Indian football has been growing. We are making noises, but where do you think we can grow better? And is there anything that you would recommend to the All India Football Federation?
It's not a recommendation. It's just a passion. First of all, I think the new sort of regime, or the new front office, as we call it, Shahi, and one of the president, I think they've kind of sort of created positive waves. And quote, just correct me if I think they've got the 2047 vision. I call it a vision. I call it a shopping list. I think where we need to put the emphasis, they've got the few MOUs, the FIFA's coming in, but the areas I would like to see instant sort of growth right away, while this at the World Cup level, is 2 big areas. One at the grassroots, where everybody is talking and living soccer. When I go there, it's only because we got a match on or we got this match on. Let's start thinking about jamborees. And I think one of the coaches, I think even Richard mentioned it, about skill centers. And if he's listening, I think in 2013 under Robert Ban, you probably remember him, the old TD, and Scott Donnelly. Was it Scott Donnelly, I think? He was the technical person for the federation. And then we had a seminar, I think, and I think Bino was there, Reddy was there, Richard was there, and I got invited as a guest from Canada through Scott. And so they had all these coaches, 2025, and I apologize, I don't remember you, but I think I could, if I saw you, I'd know who you are. And we spent 10 days together. And I think it was called, and if Richard, you're on, please do send something into it. I think it was called the match model or something. I should have done my research. I probably have a document somewhere. And we sat around and brainstormed, ran sessions. And I remember the very first session, of course, I went in with an iPad, our group went on, I think Richard was with me. We put, the first group I think went on, when I did something on paper, we went on, I said, guys, I've got an iPad at the hotel. I brought that. Next one brought a laptop. And everybody was just trying to outdo each other. It was learning from each other. And I was amazed, and that's what a learning facility about. By the end of 10 days, our whole overthought became common. The environment, and we started doing things to improve. Yeah, I went away so much knowledge as well, even though I've got some. But, you know, I liked the way, even my space, I think it was like crossing and finishing the last third. Everybody said, oh, it's too tight. I quickly made it bigger. But it was feedback, and the facilitator and Robert Barnes Scott did. And then, and Surinder might know, we ran these jamborees, and I think we got through about 300 or 400 kids. And it was all of us at different little multiple stations, and we do that here a lot. And kids come in, but these were the boys, and I don't think we had a female, and hopefully we get some. So these coaches became the eyes and ears wherever they lived. That was what Robert Band and Scott's model was, and we do the same here. And now we just had good news that I think I posted on one of, FIFA are finally giving support with our CPL. So our pathway has taken us 20 years, but it all started with grassroots. People like me, go and coach 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, mentor coaches. And then the other one is the female side. I don't think there's enough sort of buzz around that. And I personally, it's very, very personal. I think the Canadian Association, I was part of it under 19 many years ago, the national, they felt we had a better chance to get in the World Cup. It wasn't discriminating against men, it was just reality, and it got us more exposure. And if you do the research, they've reached 3 World Cups, and even the men now. So the grassroots, there's so many projects within the grassroots that we can bring on board, right? And then the third one I would do is even the clubs with ISL, I-League, we give them licenses to become clubs and stuff. Here, I was part of the FC Tigers, as you know, and I presented to a league called L1. That's the next step in our pathway. That's why FIFA recognized us, is you couldn't get the franchisee or the license unless you had a full youth program, right? So we had the men's team. We didn't have a decent. So we got turned down the first year, but then we've got another 4 or 5 franchises. You can't say, well, you have to set it up. So it's your... So the local professional club comes to a local academy. Can you become our partner / skill center? And that goes into your accreditation. So when I put the L1, we've got the facility. Let's just take Minerva. So if it was, if he's at Delhi now, right? Delhi. So he's got that. Minerva's their youth program. The only thing they're missing, where's your female side? That's actually why we got turned down. We didn't have a very good female, strong. We only had 2 teams. They said, go away, get a few more teams, get a women's team, and we'll give you the franchise. So those are sort of areas, the grassroots, finding these coaches who've got the passion. I know they may say, gee, but we don't get paid very well, but there's got to be a way of doing it. How do we create that? Because India is very similar to, that's why I would like to help the federal. We're very similar to India because of time zones, weather, culture, religions. These are all important factors for us to succeed, to create the right environment for the skill centers, the right people running them. And then we can certainly start saying, what the content at this age group? What's the content at this? Is Ryan good enough to coach the U10 development group? Because they're children, then they're athletes, then they're players. Who's doing the same for the female side? We've got to treat them as children, athletes, and then hopefully one day. And then the program I'm just working on now, which is taken up, is the youth to adult transition. We've got very good players in India. I've seen a few, 16. They play full-time for the local team, win 10-0. He goes to the I-League bench, gets 5 minutes, and that's how he cycles. And then when somebody comes in, they say, well, he's not good enough. He's not enough match time in him. So why are we not doing so? We've got 5 boys. I said, we haven't won a game this year yet, but we're getting closer. We just got beat by the league champions last kick of the game. But those 4 boys that we're trying to get there, they're getting better and better and better. And I've got my hand on my heart. They will be ready to go to the CPL next year. because that's the youth to adult transition program. But they're being very carefully. I mean, Richard and Reddy, those two I know well, they might say, okay, he's had enough playing time today. Get him off after 40 minutes, or let's get him on the last 30. And it's no different when you watch the Liverpools and the Man Cities. And all of a sudden, they're 3 up. Who comes on? A 16-year-old. But can we come up with a formula where they're getting used to adult? Put them in with the men. Him doing a nutmeg at U17 league, he tries it at the men, boom, can't do it. But we say he's a very good player because he does it at his own level. How do we transition him to the next level? Playing times one, and let him train with the players that are good enough. Let him train, but still play with the youth team once a week. That's what we do in my own youth club. We've got a 9-year-old boy training with our 11-year-old team, but he still plays with the 9-year-old boys. So that's sort of where I think the federation can go. But again, at least we've created some waves, what they're doing. But I just hope we don't lose the momentum now. Yeah.
And also, I mean, some great points. Are there anything else that you believe that exists? Any protocols that exist in the Canadian soccer system or the English football system? Do you think there's anything we can steal and implement in India, apart from what you already mentioned?
Yeah, I would look at Syria, the coach education, because we've got the active start, fundamentals, learn to train. These are very basic sort of ways of coaching children, as I say. And I think I'm just trying to think, is there a coach called Leon? I'm trying to think which club in India. He's from Europe somewhere. Leo. Anyway, yeah, I think I heard one of the podcasts the other day. He said these skill centers are so important, but he said finding the coaches to do coaching those children are the key as well. It's not show up and we're just going to do shuttles and do 1v1, but can we put them in the right environment where they love the game, they retain the passion, but you're putting in small pieces of content. And that's where our licensing does. Fundamental is 4 and 5-year-olds. Active starts is at the same age. And then having a course like we said, learn to train. Teaching players how to train properly. All right. Then they go train to win. And then we have what we call soccer for life. Because that to us is so important, retaining people in the game. And you've got a different pathway parallel for that, which is for the elite athlete. Again, we call it, and now, as you know, the academic athlete. Academics have to be parallel because, again, how many of these are going to make to pro level? We don't know. And it's very small. So those are things I would personally don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's always something out there. But bringing coaches in, I think that understand the culture. And I've listed a few, and hopefully if I could be included, I'm not sure, but I'm just saying, bring coaches, understand the culture, and can we infect the environment and the learning facilities that we spoke about earlier? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure these are going to be points that will strengthen the country's fortunes in football. In the past, I've done a course that you had conducted, and one thing that really impressed me was these little aspects you'd implement in everyday operations of an academy, which would help the players for sure, but also help the brand. So, for example, you had a point on how equipment is to be used, and how you ran ID camps, how you kept how your reports are not numbered, but they are comments. So, if you could maybe let the Indian football audience out, tell them a bit about this, then maybe that can help a lot of academies.
Yeah, I think you have to have a sort of routine, we called it. If you remember, ours was routine, rehearsal, reflection. Again, I learned it through Dick Bates and Tony Waiters. So I get up in the morning, I make my bed, actually. I get up, I brush my teeth, I shave, go to the toilet, have a shower. And that can continue in the professional world. And I think what it does for the players, it gives them a sense of prioritizing as well. Our players are never on time. You say it and you're going to joke because you've heard it. They're always 6:45 is not the arrival time. It's 6. I mean, that happened actually at Minerva with one of the African boys. Actually, it wasn't. It was the manager. He came into my room. He said, "I was there." I said, "Yeah, but we were." Because what I did, I shut the door at 6:45. We did it in the dressing room. The top players got left outside. And Ajit said, "Where is it?" I said, "I don't know." He told me. I was having a bit of fun with it. And then he walked in. I said, "Oh, by the way, you're not on the starting 11." I was pulling his leg, and he knew that. But that was a small sample. And then you know what? That next time we met, he was the first one in the dressing room. So and I joked, I said, hey, come and have tea in my room, lad. So we had a cup of tea. I said, if you want to get to the next level, because even in England, if you didn't wear a tie and suit, we used to wear a tie and suit. Even if your tie wasn't buttoned up or something, the coach would say, okay, $2. All right. So little things do help. The equipment, the visual. If I'm looking from the outside, I think when I was in with Minerva in 16, the accreditations were going on for the Federation accreditation, Academy accreditation. We got a 3-star. And when I presented the gentleman from FIFA, and I'm trying to think who was the Indian young guy, actually, I've just spoken to him a few weeks ago, who was doing the licensing at the time. And I walked in, I had a document for him. I had everybody lined up. I had badges on all our right people, even when we had Ajit, Braich, technical advisor. Ranjit came in, and he walked up and he said, wow, they didn't even check most of the stuff. It was already laid out. And I put the time, a schedule of what we were doing. We were going to go to the dressing rooms first. We went to the classrooms, I believe. Then we went to the field. And then in the evening, we were going to do something with us. But he said, no, let's go for a beer. So right away, Ranjit was a little bit, he said, oh, we don't need to. I did it. We got the accreditation almost by the time he walked through the door after 10 minutes. So those little things to me end up making the environment enjoyable, pleasant, greeting the players. They come up to you and say, hey, Gaffer, and a big handshake, and say, right, go and talk about last night. But when I whistle you in, we're starting. And then back to an academy format, as you say, I hate the word academy because I think they should be center of excellences or skill centers, is the parents that are paying customers, your guests, they're impressed with the place. Just even wearing the pennies at the FC Tigers, first change we made when I went with the owner, I said, I need 60 pennies, 3 colors, FC Tigers. So even if you did wear a shirt, because we didn't have enough money to give everybody a shirt, you walked in and you put on an FC Tigers penny. As soon as you walked through the gate. When you looked out there, everyone had an FC Tigers penny on, right? Because we didn't have enough money for training yet, but at least we got penny. So those little things that you speak out are very, very important. Routine rehearsal, reflection. Do that yourself. Are the players doing it? The reports, that's interesting because the guys that step out, those guys, right? Very good analytical company in India. When we first spoke to advise them, raw data is dangerous. Think about those words. All right. Pro clubs, even we do a little bit with VO. We try to translate that data into something we can create a picture on the field. Yeah, we can show 30 seconds to a player and say, hey, Ryan, remember that? Didn't shoulder check, received with the inside foot, nearest the defender, took the ball away. But then we create, but that has to have a picture to it. It's not, well, we lost the ball 60% and it was in the attacking third. We only got 2 touches. But don't be a Man City because they've got, I think, 12 analytical people in their office. There's you, me, and the assistant coach. So create a few notes. What was it involved? Show them a clip of players hate watching videos for an hour, 2 hours, particularly young players. They can't sit through it. So create the appropriate clips. We did with Ranjit and Sachin when we were at the Mohun Bahagan game, 2016 opening game. We studied them really thoroughly. We got tied 0-0, luckily, that day. But it was me and Ranjit doing that. But when it came to explain to players, there were little snippets, little stories, what they did well, didn't do well, what were we going to do. Ranjit, I think we stayed at Ranjit's hotel till about 2 o'clock in the morning. But that data was now translated into a picture or a theme or something, right? So raw data is very dangerous. And the guys that step out have done a very good job. They're growing slowly. Do less to achieve more. What I mean by less is don't take this whole report on it and then you get it wrong. Take little pieces of it. So we're taking less, but to achieve more. Yeah. I think
again, some valuable points here. Now, before I let you go, I'd like to say on a lighter note, but then this is something that's not spoken about enough. So you play golf, you dress well, you have a good life. So there's no doubt that finance is not a problem for you. You are a rich man. You have done very well in yourself. So now, again, this is something that's not spoken about in podcasts. It's not spoken about at courses, but it's important because we all need money to survive. So what were the steps you took to ensure that you are financially stable, and any advice you would give to Indian coaches on how we can ensure that we have a good life financially?
Yeah. Well, I'm not certainly rich. I am rich in one thing, that I've got family support. That goes back to what I said. So the financial side, we touched on it earlier, it's very, very important. But the thing that I learned very early with my wife, she's very good at this. We only lived within our means, right? Even a quick story, when I moved here from England, I had a very good job, good salary, good car, nice house there as well. I moved here, huge transition. I couldn't sell the house in England. And then here, I had an operations job before I was doing soccer, like on a volunteer basis, as I said earlier. So my brother who lived here, he's got an old car. And I said, Bindi, can I borrow the car? And he said, why? I said, I can't afford a car yet. So I said, driving this old car to work. And I probably could afford it, finance it. And then the guys at work would say, Ajit, but you're the manager, buy a new car. I said, I can't afford one. Can't afford one. So I stayed like that for 2 years, stayed in the basement, and then sold the house until I got a decent paying job. Then I started saying, what luxury can we afford now? And I use that word very lightly. And luxury wasn't playing golf with that. I couldn't play then because it's expensive. All right. But it was little things. All right. What were the little things? Maybe we got a dog, I think, or the boys wanted to go away for the weekend. So everything was around us. It wasn't that I wanted to buy a Boss suit for $900. Even now, I don't do that because I don't think that's what I need. Right? I'd rather say, Ryan, if I'm in Pune, hey, I'll take you for lunch. That lunch is priceless. Not a free lunch. It's just, I want to take you. So think about your finances. Don't say, well, I've got this job. It's only paying me 70,000 rupees. Well, did you consider what the living costs were you for? I think we had one coach on that last course we did. He said, but I said, you need to do a budget. What does mom and dad need in our culture? Because my parents stayed with me till they passed away, bless their heart. I needed to look after them too. So don't just say, I need this TD role that you described earlier, I did, but does it work for me health-wise? All right. Do I need a Nike shirt every day? I can go and buy a no brand, but now I can probably afford to, but I still don't do it. My children do though, because they're in that position. But that's managing it again. Not to keep mentioning those 3 or 4 names, they're the only ones that come to me. Find out what they've done. They're pretty successful. I think Surinder as well, not anyone won't mind. He's still at the school. It's good benefits, good stuff. I did that because I stayed and coached part-time and did this. And he still does a lot in soccer, all right? So talk to these people. That's where I think India, we can do a better job, is mentoring coaches. And I think you and I spoke before we came online. Licensing is important, but these discussions today, and well done today, a lot of them have nothing to do with technical content, but it will help us in the technical content and the journey and the good of the game in India. And that's why I'm passionate now, because I want to help, right? Because I think we have the platform, we have the coaches. I know probably 20 if I went through my little notebook that could somehow get in a room with the leaders and say, guys, what do we want to do and make a difference, but get everything else off the field right. Then on the field, I feel that we have the finances as well now. FIFA kicked in a bit. I think the government kicked in. So those are things that the hierarchy should be worried about. And that's where I think Canada has been very successful for about 20. We've hit a bit of a bump in the road. Can't say that because our women's teams now are having to rebuild. We just lost our men's coach to a local club. Again, he's a very good, but we're in the World Cup because we're hosting it next in 2 years. We're off the field. So anyway, I'm saying well done to you, because when you sent a lot of these questions over I thought, great. And we don't do enough. It's about, well, let's discuss the ISL. Who's the best player, right? Who's the coach? Why is he not doing well? Even the little marks, the coaches create something like this ourselves. Well, you could do it, couldn't you? And find a topic and say, bring a Richard, a Reddy. I'm not saying they might not be everybody's favorites. For me, they're just people I've worked and I have respect for them. but find somebody that's gone through that journey. I may not be probably ideal because I haven't gone through it in the early days, but I understand their pain. But who's helping them? How do we get the best player, the best coaches eventually in the game to make everything you've discussed today? I don't know.
But then there's a great point you have said, which is to live within your means, and that's probably
Yes.
keep people safe. And another one, and a very interesting one, which I'm sure. So there are a lot of Indian coaches who aspire to coach abroad, to coach out of India. Now that may be for the sake of glory, for the sake of recognition, for the sake of financial gain. But what is your advice? Because let's consider you as an Indian coach who's gone abroad and made a life, but then it could also maybe go otherwise. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think we're coming back to all the same points. You've got to, and you've been through it recently. We can discuss it, but you've got to do the research. Some of these in even US and Canada, as much as I'm saying they're doing well, we got academies here that are what we are calling factories. They're just bringing numbers in. They don't even produce players. But I have an academy. I've got 600 kids. I'm making 20 grand. Or is that what you want to do? I don't know. If it's success, I'm not knocking them. If that's what they want to do, great, go ahead. But coming abroad is not early. Betty came over. Cost of living here. And you and I discussed it. So when you do get these jobs and you say, oh, yeah, but if you're doing summer camp, I would suggest that look at companies that just do summer camps. That's how I started when I moved to Canada. I came over 2 months, did the summer camps, got contact. And then, but I think most places, there aren't going to be positions for you that you make a very good living. All right. It's no different here. But there is more opportunity because obviously, particularly America now, the MLS, NCAA. But you do need the certification. Do you have a pro license? And because a lot of them are now even asking for bachelor degrees, which some senior coaches like me, we disagree with a little bit because somebody having a degree doesn't make you a good coach. It's good people skills, good recruiting, good management, good assistant coaches. But yeah, do the research. Find somebody like me. Find somebody like you, Ryan. You've just gone through it with you and I with one incident. Luckily, we did enough thorough research, and that's why we're smiling today.
Absolutely.
Somebody else in your, I think somebody in your shoes had not contacted me, or you met the guy at the IS. I think they would have been here and lasted a month and gone back.
Yes,
it wasn't what it was made. It wasn't made out to what it was it?
No, it wasn't definitely. And now this connects me to the last question here. So you are a tremendous mentor. And I'm sure for the viewers from this entire 1 hour plus of discussion, it's evident. Now, can you tell us what your mentorship program looks like? So this is for the coaches, for coach educators, for TDs, for club academy owners. If they want to contact you, how do they do that? And what does your mentorship look like?
The mentorship, there's no one way. If somebody contacts me, first of all, people say, oh, we're going to charge X number. We don't have no fixed price. Calls like you and I did for months, those workshops. They were genuine people. We didn't charge, didn't want to charge. My wife will say, and even Ranjit will tell you, it's a very nominal fee that goes into my expenses in India. Very low. And I mean, but if somebody wants to contact me, more than welcome. And then I'm going to do what I've just described to the audience. I'm going to take a good look at that profile. What do they want? Where do they want it? How do they want it? Remember all the routine stuff that we discussed. And then I'm going to say, Ryan, even with your academy, we said we need to do this and this. Initially with you, it was just maybe a call every couple of weeks, wasn't it? Didn't charge anything. It's not about the money now. However, if I've got to take a flight out, I did it with Raman Vijaya, came to his academy. I said, here's my little fee. It was an extraordinary, look after my food, my hotel, they picked me up. And we spent 10 days just mentoring him, right? And saying, well, Ajit, he'll say, well, when you're in Punjab, because we have 2 homes in Punjab, one in my village, one of my wife's, he'll say, when you're in, give me a call. And knowing our family, they're busy shopping, blah, blah. So Ranjit say, come in 4 days. And he'll say, well, just put me in a hotel. So I need to see what that looks like we said earlier. as a coach, I need to know what I need or what am I doing? Why am I? So same applies here. I mean, you can share my WhatsApp number. I don't mind doing that. Just ping me. And what we don't want is everybody consuming my time. We had one. I think we went on for about 3 weeks. I think he took everything away and literally cut and pasted it. And I said, look, young man, what you're doing is not. I said, well, let's agree on a fee if you want me to really implement it. Yeah. And then I never heard from him. But again, the danger thing with that gentleman, he came back about 3. He said, yeah, we didn't even know how to deliver what you were saying. So it's all right having content cut and paste. How do you deliver it? How do you find the right people? That's why I mentioned some of the senior guys I worked with in India 2013. I hope Richard does listen because I do remember him well. There's so many good coaches out there. Talk to them. So yeah, mine, I mean, I can share it, 604-418-3236. Make sure you put the plus sign and the number 1 because that's the area code. I'm on a lot of groups anyway. I don't mind contributing, but I think the one-on-ones are very important. And if we can help you, great. If we can't, we'll try to find you that somebody can. But well done for some of the great questions today. And obviously, if I've offended anybody, hopefully not. Just trying to give you my view from where I am, the other side of the world. And I still believe India have got a lot of potential to be moving up the ranks very quickly as well, with the right people, right thoughts, right programs. And it's already happening, I think. Yeah. And don't forget the female side. I'm very sort of passionate about that. Yeah.
For sure. And for me, I enjoyed this talk very, very much. And thank you for taking time out because you are someone who holds multiple roles. And with the time difference, you've managed to slot this interview in. So yeah, great stuff. I enjoyed it. Thank you for coming along. And Archis is just going to conclude the interview.
Thank you so much, Ajit, sir, for your time. Some golden words. I, for one, definitely learned a lot. And I hope our viewers will do the same. And I'm honestly very fortunate to have received mentorship from your side. So, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ajit. Well done. Stay healthy and let's chat soon. Thank you, guys.